so for your activating strategy, you're going to want to fill in these diamonds or big X's, if you will. So you're going to fill in two factors that if you multiply together, you'd get the top number. And if you add those same two numbers together, you're going to get the bottom number. So for instance, if I think of factors of 15, I got 1, 3, 5, and 15. Well, which of these factors can I multiply together to give me 15? But if I add them together, I get 8. Well, 5 and 3 work. Okay, so I want you to take a second, pause the video, try this on your own, and then you're going to check your work. Okay, so on number 2, I should have gotten factors of 24, which is 1, 2, 3. I'm sorry, I'm going to do this in a different color. So factors of 24 are going to be 1, 2, 3, 4, 6, 8, 24. Okay, and what numbers can I add together to get me 10? 6 and 4. Okay, so I'm going to work through these next few a little quicker. So list them out, and then you should have gotten 16 and 2. Factors of negative, you've got to list out the factors of 8, and then you've got to also keep in mind that they're negative, right? Well, I know that 2 times 4 will give me positive 8, but I need one of them to be negative, right? And the reason why this is going to be a negative 2 is because if I add negative 2 to 4, I'm going to get a positive 2. Okay? Again, try to pause the video and try to do it on your own before you check your work. So on number 5, we're going to list out the factors. Okay, so 1, 2, 4, 5, 10, and 20. And what two numbers can I add together to give me negative 8? Well, 10 and 2 will work, but that 10 is going to be negative because we want to have a negative 8. And then the last one, 6. 1, 2, 3, and 6. And what two numbers can I add together to get me negative 5? Well, 2 and 3 I can multiply to get me 6. And if I add them together, I can get positive 5, but we want negative 5. So we're going to make them both negative. Because remember, a negative times a negative makes me a positive 6. But if I add two negatives together, I'm going to get a negative number as well. Okay, so hopefully that was pretty easy. But that's going to take us into actually factoring. So hopefully in the past, your teacher was like, hey, this is how you factor. But if not, I'm going to reteach you. Okay, so the biggest thing is probably using the big X. So first, though, we have to make sure that, one, our problem is in standard form. So standard form is going to be that ax squared plus bx plus c equals 0 form, which in this case ours is, except we just need to have that equal 0 on the end. Okay? So next thing I want to do is I want to identify my A, B, and C. So A for this one is going to be 1. It's going to be out in front of this x squared. Okay, and the reason why I know it's a 1 is if nothing is written there, we assume that it's a 1. Okay? This B term is going to be that 4. Okay, it's that term that's right in front of the x raised to the first power. Okay? And the C term is going to be this negative 32. Okay? So just a reminder, your A term, your B term, and your C term. And sometimes it helps me to like just do the color coordinating, but that's up to you. Okay? So on this top portion, we're going to take our A times C. So 1 times negative 32, which is going to give me negative 32. So A times C is how we're going to get that. Okay? And then down here at the bottom, we're going to take our B term. Okay? And this is just like our activating strategy. So what two numbers can I multiply together to give me negative 32? But if I add that together, I'm going to get 4. Okay? So I'm going to list out my factors of 32. Okay. So let's do that really quick. Let's list out our factors of 32. So 1 times 32. Ooh. The pen's going a little crazy. 1 times 32 is going to give me 32. But if I add it together, that's going to give me 33. And that one doesn't work. Okay, what about 2 times 16? If I add them together, I'm going to get 18. That doesn't really work. What about 8 times 4? If I add it together, that's going to give me 12. Okay. But remember how it's negative up here? Okay, so that's also something to keep in mind. So we need to take one of these numbers and make it negative. Well, what if we made this 4 negative? Okay, so let's try that. 8 times negative 4. Well, that gives us negative 32. But if I add it together, that also gives us 4. Okay, so if you ever have this negative number, one of your factors has to be negative. Okay, so this one's going to work for us. So I'm going to have 8 and negative 32, or negative 4. Okay, so now the next step is a little different from each teacher. I'm going to show you how I do mine. Okay, at this point, you could rewrite this as x plus 8 times x minus 4. However, since your A term is 1, that's the reason why you can just stop and not have to do anything else. But I want to go ahead and show you how to do the box method. Okay, so what I mean by that is you're going to draw a cute little box. Yay! And you're going to take your first term from the original equation. You're going to put it in this first box. Then you're going to take this last term from the original equation. And you're going to put it in this last box. And these two terms that you just found, you're going to slap an X onto them. You're going to put them back in the box. Okay, so I'm going to slap an X onto them. And I'm going to throw them back into the box. Fantastic. Now remember how we talked about GCF last week a little bit? Hopefully you did that Desmos activity. If you didn't, this is where it kind of comes into play. We're going to take the GCF of the rows and columns. So in this column right here, okay, what is our greatest common factor? What do they have in common? Well, 1 is a common factor, but also they both have an X. So I'm going to pull out an X for my GCF from that column. In this column over here, they both don't have an X, but I know that a factor of 32 is 8. So I'm going to pull out an 8 as my GCF. Okay, over here, in this row, we're trying to think, okay, what does x squared and 8x have in common? Well, they both share an x, right? Also, one way to check this term and this term should be multiplied together to give you what's inside the box. Okay, so let me say that again. This term and this term, if I multiply them together, I should get what's inside the box. So x times 8 gives me 8x. That's how I know that that's the GCF on the outside on this side. Okay, the last row, well, they both have negative 4 as a factor. Okay, so as you can see, if I pull everything that's on the outside of these boxes, it's this just written out in a different format. Okay, so in order to factor, you've got to do the big X, and if your A is 1, you can just write that out after you find the two terms. Okay, so let's look at another one. I want you to go ahead and pause the video and try this one. This one you should be able to do just like what we did on the last problem. But go ahead and pause the video and try it on your own. So we're first going to identify our A, B, and C. So our A in this one is 1. Our B is 15. And our C is 36. And we already checked and made sure that it was in standard form. Remember, standard form is ax squared plus bx plus c equals 0, right? Okay? And remember, how I got these is I said, all right, what's the term in front of x squared? Well, it's 1. What's the term in front of x? It's 15. What's in front of the number by itself? 36. Okay? And so now I'm going to complete my big X by doing A times C, which is going to give me 36. And my B term is going to be 15. So I'm going to list out factors of 36 that if I add them together, they're going to be 15. All right, so 1 times 36 gives me 37 when I add it together. Okay, and 2 times 18 is going to give me 20 if I add it together. All right, and then let's see. 6 times 6 will give me 36, but if I add it together, that'll give me 12. Okay, and then, well, I can't think of any other factors. So I'm going to show you a really quick trick to help you make sure that you know factors. So I need factors of 36. So I'm going to go into my TI-83 calculator, and I'm going to hit this y equals button. And I'm going to type 36 divided by x. Let me say that again. I'm going to hit this y equals button, and I'm going to type 36 divided by x, because I want factors of 36. I'm then going to hit second and graph, and that's going to pull up this x and y table. Do you notice how on this x and y table, 1 times 36 gives me 36, and 2 times 18 is going to give me 36, and 3 times 12 is going to give me 36. 3 times 12. Well, doesn't that add together to give me 15? Yeah, it does. So those are my two factors. Okay? So now I'm going to do my box, right? And despite the fact that my A term is already 1, and so I could just write it out by doing x plus 3 times x plus 12, I want to make sure that I get my practice in. So I'm going to take that first term from the original problem and put it in the first box. Last term, put it in the last box. Sorry, I'm trying to color coordinate. And then I'm going to take those other two terms, slap on an x, and throw them inside the box. I'm going to take my greatest common factor from the rows and columns. So from this column, I've got an x. From this column, I got a 3. From this row, I've got an x. And from this row, I've got a 12. So my final answer is going to be x plus 3 times x plus 12. Oh yeah. Okay. And if you're like, I just want some more practice, Khan Academy has a ton of these practice problems. It'll immediately tell you if it's wrong or right. Okay? Alright, so this is a fun one. I'm going to teach you kind of like a little trick method in just a second. So I know most of us don't like the box, so I'm going to teach you the slip and slide method. So the first thing you want to do is make sure this is in standard form, which it already is. And then you're going to identify your A, B, and C terms. Okay, so your A term is 2, your B term is 17, and then your C term is 21. Okay? And that should be easy to identify at this point. A times C, so 2 times 21, that's going to give me 42. And then my B is going to be 17. Okay, so your girl doesn't know her factors of 42. So she's going to go into her calculator, and she's going to hit that y equals button. She's going to type 42 because that's the factors that I want, divided by x. And then I'm going to hit second graph, and that's going to pull up all my factors. Okay, so I need to think. 1 times 42 gives me 42, but doesn't add together to give me 17. 2 times 21 doesn't add together to give me 17. 3 times 14, that does add together to give me 17. Awesome. So now, for the slip and slide method, here's what you're going to do. You're going to take your A term. Your A term is 2, right? And you're going to divide these two numbers that you just got. Now, if you divide 14 divided by 2, that gives you a whole number, right? Well, 14 divided by 2 gives me 7. So one of my factors is going to be x plus 7. But over here, if I take 3 divided by 2, that's not going to give me a whole number. So what I'm going to do is I'm going to take this number that I just had on the bottom, and I'm going to pull it out to the front, and I'm going to write 2x. And whatever I have left over right here, I'm just going to bring it down. Okay? Some of you have probably heard this as bottoms up or slip and slide. Completely up to you, but you can use this method. Okay? If you're like, I just want to use the box, this is how you do it. Create your box. Put your first term in the first box, last term in the last box, and those two terms you just found, you're going to slap an X onto them and put them inside the box. If you pull out the greatest common factor, look at what happens. You still get the same thing. So you can do either of these methods. It's whatever's comfortable for you. And most teachers teach it this way, but I've seen in the past this. So again, if it's a whole number, when you divide it by the A term, then you're just going to bring that whole number down. If it's not a whole number, then you're going to bring the bottom number out to the front, and then you're going to leave whatever is on top. So hopefully this helped with the factoring just a little bit. You will have some independent practice, so make sure that you're checking each class. All right, thanks guys.